Let's move into the second part of our emergency care series, where we'll look at intra-abdominal injuries, genitourinary trauma, crush injuries, and fractures. These conditions are often complicated, and early recognition and management can make the difference between recovery and disability. We'll begin with intra-abdominal injuries. These are divided into penetrating and blunt trauma. Penetrating injuries include gunshot and stab wounds. They're often serious, frequently require surgery, and commonly damage hollow organs such as the small bowel. The liver is the most frequently injured solid organ, simply because of its large size and its position in the right upper quadrant. In gunshot wounds, the single most important prognostic factor is velocity. A high-velocity bullet causes massive tissue damage compared to a slower projectile. All abdominal gunshot wounds that cross the peritoneum require surgical exploration, while some stab wounds may be managed non-operatively. Blunt trauma, often seen in car crashes, falls, or blows, can be even more challenging. Injuries may be hidden, and patients often present with other injuries to the chest, head, or extremities. Damage to the liver, kidneys, spleen, or blood vessels can lead to life-threatening internal bleeding. During assessment, the abdomen is carefully inspected during the secondary survey. Nurses look for bruises, abrasions, or obvious penetrating injuries. Bowel sounds are auscultated. The absence of bowel sounds can suggest peritoneal involvement, though stress itself can reduce motility. Worrisome signs include abdominal distension, tenderness, guarding, rigidity, rebound tenderness, or progressive pain. Hypotension and signs of shock may also be present. Lab tests guide management. Serial hemoglobin and hematocrit show bleeding trends. Lactate levels tell us about acidosis and the adequacy of resuscitation. Arterial blood gases provide pH, base deficit, and oxygenation values. INR identifies coagulopathy, while WBC count reflects trauma-related inflammation. Internal bleeding is a constant concern, especially with liver or spleen injuries. Nurses assess the front, flanks, and back for bruising or discoloration. Abdominal CT scans are the gold standard in stable patients, while unstable patients often go straight to a FAST exam. That's focused assessment with sonography for trauma, to quickly identify free fluid. Pain location can be a vital clue. Pain in the left shoulder is classic with splenic rupture, while right shoulder pain suggests liver injury. When intraperitoneal injury is suspected, diagnostic peritoneal lavage can still be used if CT is unavailable, especially in mass casualty situations. In DPL, warmed fluid is instilled into the abdomen and then withdrawn. The presence of bile, feces, food particles, or a high red or white blood cell count signals significant injury. Now let's shift to genitourinary injuries. These are evaluated with a focused exam, including rectal and vaginal assessment. In men, a high-riding prostate on rectal exam is a warning sign for urethral injury. In women, vaginal exams may reveal lacerations from open pelvic fractures. Here's a critical safety point. Never insert a urinary catheter until after a rectal exam is completed. If urethral injury is suspected, catheterization is contraindicated. Urology consultation and further evaluation must come first. Once it's safe, a catheter can be used to decompress the bladder and monitor urine output. Management includes the basics of resuscitation: airway, breathing, and circulation. With blunt trauma, spinal precautions are critical. The patient is kept on a stretcher to protect the spine, and if a backboard was used, it should be removed as soon as possible to prevent skin injury. The mechanism of injury helps guide management, and all wounds must be documented carefully. If abdominal organs protrude, they are covered with sterile, moist dressings. Oral fluids are withheld, and stomach decompression with an orogastric tube may be used in preparation for surgery or diagnostic studies. Because trauma opens the door to infection, tetanus prophylaxis and broad-spectrum antibiotics are routinely given. Patients must be monitored closely, and if there are ongoing signs of shock, bleeding, free air under the diaphragm, or evisceration, rapid transfer to the operating room is indicated. Interestingly, many blunt liver and spleen injuries can now be managed without surgery, but the key is rapid movement from the emergency department to definitive care. Next, let's look at crush injuries. These occur when the body is compressed between opposing forces. For example, being run over, trapped under a collapsed building, or pinned between vehicles. These injuries are dangerous not just for what they do immediately, but for the cascade of damage that happens after pressure is released. Blood and plasma leak into injured tissues, causing hypovolemic shock. Associated injuries may include spinal cord damage, skin blistering, fractures, and acute kidney injury. A major complication of crush injury is rhabdomyolysis. This occurs when damaged muscle cells release myoglobin into the bloodstream, overwhelming the kidneys and leading to acute tubular necrosis. The classic triad of rhabdomyolysis is muscle pain, weakness, and dark-colored urine. Creatine kinase levels over 6,000 are highly diagnostic, and serum lactic acid is monitored as well, with a drop below 2 indicating successful resuscitation. Management focuses on maintaining ABCs while protecting the kidneys. Soft tissue injuries are splinted to control bleeding and pain. Injured extremities should be elevated. If compartment syndrome develops, a fasciotomy may be needed to restore circulation. Pain and anxiety medications are important, and patients are transported promptly to the operating room for debridement and fracture repair. When available, hyperbaric oxygen can be used to improve tissue oxygenation in crushed areas. Finally, we'll cover fractures. Immediate and careful management of a fracture can mean the difference between recovery and permanent disability. During assessment, clothing is cut away so the injury can be visualized. Nurses handle the injured body part gently and as little as possible. Signs include pain at or near the bone, swelling, bruising, tenderness, or a grating sensation called crepitus. Remember that patients may have multiple fractures and other major injuries at the same time. Airway, breathing, and circulation always come first. If a pulseless extremity is identified, immediate realignment may be attempted. For a fractured femur, portable traction devices like hair traction can be applied. If circulation isn't restored, the patient goes rapidly to the OR for vascular evaluation and possible repair. A full head-to-toe exam follows, with special attention to distal pulses, skin temperature, color, sensation, and motor function. Splinting is a critical step. It immobilizes the joint above and below the fracture, relieves pain, improves circulation, and prevents a closed fracture from breaking through the skin. Splints are applied with traction distal to the injury, while supporting beneath the fracture. After splinting, vascular status must be reassessed, including color, temperature, pulses, and capillary refill. Any report of pain or pressure should prompt evaluation for neurovascular compromise. Taken together, intra-abdominal injuries, genitourinary trauma, crush injuries, and fractures represent some of the most serious challenges in emergency care. They require fast recognition, precise assessment, and coordinated management to prevent disability and save lives.